Hey there, this is Jitsi, and this is the Crush Chronicles, a podcast about crushes and how they affect our lives as humans. So grab your coffee or wine, pull out your old diaries, and settle in for today's interview and discussion. The mean kids, most of them were boys. Boys who called me fat, stupid, beat me up on the playground daily, and made me believe no one would ever like me. They told me so. Of course, this was not true, and there are many accounts in which boys did reciprocate my feelings or even liked me first. Because I was so damaged, I truly thought it was not possible for a guy to be interested in me. And if he actually admitted that he was, it had to have been a prank, a cruel, practical joke. This is episode 4 of the Crush Chronicles podcast, and I am happy to introduce Noel, she, her, as the featured guest. Welcome, Noel.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. And before we start the hot goss, please share a little bit about yourself and let us know who we're chatting with today.
I'm Noel Walker. I'm 36 years old. I grew up in the Bay Area, so over in Burlingame, California, and moved down here for college. And down here is Southern California. And yeah, I work currently at Disneyland as a costumer area manager for production and sustainment on costumes. So that's a lot of fun, living my best theater life professionally. So that's good.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with a little bit of an icebreaker before we get into our main topic. So who is a current celebrity or fictional crush that you have, or one that you had in your childhood? You can pick one, or you can share more if you like.
I don't know that I have one celebrity crush, but I have a few that kind of feel the same vibe. So I have a friend who does something called the man's bracket. So twice a year, she puts all of the like hot celebrities on this bracket, and you have to pick like this one or this one. And so almost every single time I do it, I get Dwayne The Rock Johnson or Jason Momoa. And then I realize it's because she hasn't added Henry Cavill from The Witcher. So those are
Oh, is
kind
it
of
specifically like them in their roles, in a role they've played, or is it
no,
the actor? Oh, okay.
it's the actor.
But you're specifically like Henry Cavill in The Witcher.
Yeah, I didn't take note of him in Superman or really Sherlock much. I don't know what else he's done, probably a ton of things, but
Wait,
no, it was The Witcher
Sherlock?
where I was like, okay. Yeah,
He
wasn't
was
he
in
in
Sherlock?
he was Sherlock in Enola Holmes. There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
watched that one yet. Okay, so how did you feel about the Witcher recast then when because he's not returning as the lead, right, anymore?
Yeah. So I haven't seen I don't even know that the new season with was that one of the Hemsworths? No? Who did they put
Oh,
in
yeah, it
that?
is.
Someone? No.
Isn't it Liam Hemsworth?
Is that the one that was in the Hunger Games?
Yeah.
Or is that a different one? I don't know. There's a million of them.
No, I think
Um,
Liam was in the Hunger Games.
yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm not excited about it, but I think one of the things that really worked for Henry Cavill doing it is like he was already obsessed with the books. He was obsessed with the games. He brought so much of, I guess not the culture, but yeah, I guess the culture of that story and all of the different mediums it had been told on prior. So it was just really cool to see his interpretation of it. He was really involved in a lot of the production parts of it, whether that's good or bad, because if you like something too much, you can get a little freaky about it. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. It's different, right? So
Yeah.
we'll accept it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I was a little disappointed, and I wasn't as into The Witcher as some people were, but I definitely enjoyed it, and he was definitely part of the reason.
Yeah, I didn't read any of the books. I didn't play any of the games, just
Yeah. Just
watched
watched
it.
it and enjoyed it and consumed it on Netflix. Yeah, I
Yep.
was the same. Okay, so I was going to share my first childhood celebrity crush was Jonathan Taylor Thomas, or JTT. He was probably one of the first ones that I had like posters up in my room. I bought all the Teen Bops with him on it and watched like all of his movies and stuff. And then he just kind of like fizzled away after Wild America.
What is he up to nowadays?
I think he's living his best life. Like he's just like I don't need it anymore. I'm good. Yeah,
Good for
living the
him.
quiet life. So let's move deeper into the conversation. So before attending today, you read part two of the story of Blaine. So we're going to have a discussion that's inspired by that section of that story. Okay, so getting into it right off the bat, I confess a cringingly embarrassing thing I used to do with some boys that I crushed on, which was pushing them into a brotherly role as a form of emotional self-defense. What is something cringy you have done with past crushes?
You know, I've I've had multiple ways of trying to date boys. And I have fallen into the whole, brotherly love scenario for at least one of my crushes in high
Oh, really
school
good.
in the
I thought I
past.
was alone. So I'm
No,
glad you
no, no,
said
no.
that.
It's easy to develop those friendships and then finally feel safe, but that's when you start to friend zone yourself. So I did resonate a lot with the story that you were telling because I experienced that with someone in high school. I don't know that this was a dating habit, but it's a cringy thing I did. I dated cousins in high school, like back to back.
What?
So yeah, it was weird to show up at like a bunch of family gatherings for one, and then shortly after, all the same family gatherings for the other. So I mean, talk about brotherly love, I guess.
So how did that come about? Like, did you like go to the same school? Or was it just like, how did you guys end up in that scenario?
Theater will bring you real
Okay.
close to people real
Yeah, it sure
fast. And
will.
so I had been pretty established in the theater high school community at the high school I went to. And then they had kind of come into that later on, I think I was a sophomore, so maybe I wasn't that ingrained in it. And then they had come in and they were senior and junior. And so we just spent a lot of time together and hit it off. But
Okay.
then I guess I had spent more time with the other one when it didn't work out with guy number one. So, we're all learning at that age.
We are. It's so true. Well, thank you for sharing. It's hard to share cringy things that we have done.
It helps that I'm married with a kid, so it's very far in the past where I can just
Yes.
kind of laugh about it, but
Yeah.
whew.
Yeah. Okay. So after reading about my junior year with Blaine, what parts of the story stuck out or resonated with you and why?
I think a lot of that self-doubt, that personal self-doubt that we have at that age, because reading your story, and I don't know if you came to this conclusion or not, you were probably way more popular than you think or thought
I
that
did
you were.
not I did not come to that conclusion. I am 39 and have never come to that conclusion.
You had so many friends in so many different facets and clubs of your life, so many people who you referenced as, people that you had come across and had developed friendships with. And you even said celebration was the most exclusive thing you could go to. And even though it was a friendship that ended up getting you that ticket in, you also had a sophomore ask you out. So you were definitely well thought of. And, I have to remember we're all feeling this insane vulnerability as we're figuring out how to navigate our feelings, puberty. What's next? I have a friend who has a kid starting junior year of high school right now, and how much pressure we put on such young folks to figure out their future, their college, their SATs, and then layering in like sexual awakening and how do I socially feel and what is appropriate to share with people about those feelings. And I think it's really important to take a step back and go, look, like I actually did okay. But that was something that popped out to me was I wonder if she ever got to that resolution that she was probably way more popular than than it felt at the time.
No, I didn't. And thank you so much for saying that. And it's not that we need to be popular, but it's that, yeah, that you, yeah, like you said, you look back and you're like, I was actually doing pretty okay. And like I was fine with what I had and very happy. And actually, I'm probably one of the few people that looks back on high school sort of fondly, which might be what makes it a little bit easier for me to write about. But yeah, I really thank you for saying that. But yeah, I like how you also point out that, that time in our lives is very hard and we put so much pressure on kids, especially like they're supposed to be trying to excel as much as they can and get ready for college. And that's not even like going into, can they even pay for college? I don't think, at least when I was in high school, it was not thought of whether or not you could pay for it. It was, how are you going to get in? It wasn't even, do you want to go to college or not? Like that was even a rare conversation. It was just, do you want to go in? And it's a lot of pressure. Like college is a big decision. And then you add the fact that you're sexually attracted to all these people around you and you're trying to figure that out. It's like, what are we doing?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I
Yep.
like that you brought that up. Moving on to the next one, I describe having to perform with a well roundedly attractive guy named Graham. Yeah, I never developed a crush on him despite the really hot things that he did during the song. Do you think that females are expected to fall for the conventionally attractive male? And what do you think happens when we don't?
Hmm. I want to ask a question first.
Yeah,
Did you
sure.
expect the hand kiss? Was that unexpected when he kissed your hand in the first performance, or was that piece of it planned?
Honestly, I am not sure. Regardless, whether it was done in rehearsal or whether it was done live that night, I think the first time I probably wasn't expecting it. I think it was because we
Yeah,
were very much, it was a lip sync. It was not like some heavily blocked planned performance. The students were directing the students. Like we were like improving half of it during rehearsal and then whatever we rehearsed was what we ended up doing on stage. It was always just very open. But so regardless, I'm sure I was surprised the first time.
I could just only imagine having an audience if you didn't have time to wrap your head around the hand kiss and then having an audience for it. How overwhelmingly awesome, but overwhelming that would probably still feel.
Yeah, for sure.
But I will answer your question. I was just curious. I don't know that nowadays there's a whole lot of pressure to, fall for whatever that conventional handsome or pretty or attractive look is. I think that's probably something that we put on ourselves to present to others. But I don't know that, my type has always been, the handsome jock that's out there winning the football game. I'm usually looking for someone that's gonna make me laugh, or you kind of touched on it, like make you feel safe. Like those are more of those qualities that I'm leaning towards, even when I was younger. It was, do we laugh? Do we have a good time? It wasn't as much about I've got the eye candy. So I don't know. I do think that at least I felt less pressure to be attracted to that when I was younger, but more pressure to try to be that as I was growing up. Yeah. So I think things have changed on acceptance of who people like and what they're attracted to. So
That's
that's
good.
good.
That's a very positive response. I like it. And also to touch back on that, I like how you said you felt like it was more how you felt you needed to present yourself. Like you needed to be attractive in order to bring in love interest. Do you think that is something that's more prominent for people who identify as women than the other way around? Like, do you think women put more pressure on themselves to be attractive? Like, we already do so many things. Like, we shave our legs, we shave under our arms, we dye our hair. And not to say that we like when I wear makeup and stuff, it's not for anybody else. It's because I enjoy putting on makeup. But we still do a lot of these things in hopes of becoming attractive. Whereas men, I think they shave sometimes. Like, I'm not. They get haircuts. Like, I'm not really sure what other efforts besides, maybe the gym rat like really does to attract a mate.
I think it's also important to note at what point in our I guess, you know, finding the lobster phase, are we? I don't know if you're familiar with that movie. I didn't watch it, but someone explained it to me where you go to an afterlife and you have to find like your perfect mate or you become a lobster. It's so weird. So
I have
I'm just
not
saying
heard
like
that. When you
so,
said lobster
when
phase, I was thinking Friends when, Phoebe says she found her lobster. Is she referring to what you're talking about?
No, I think this movie came out afterwards. Again, I didn't watch it. Someone explained it to me. But in
Okay.
that sense of, when you found your person that you've kind of settled down with, like, yes, you still want to look presentable, but you feel less pressure to, I guess, put on the I'm perfect show, right? So, but when you're out there like looking for someone to date, someone to settle down with, whatever you're into, when you are looking to attract a mate, I suppose, you're going to put more of that effort in. And so I do think men still feel the same pressure, even though how they present themselves is different, with whether that be like your physique or your hair. There's a lot of insecurities that I've found with men sometimes where, if they're gaining weight or if people are starting to lose hair, I know that that's also a very sensitive thing for men. So, we women over here are trying to make ourselves hairless, and, the men are like, hey, I need my hair. So
No,
I think it
I
just
I get
matters
what you're
what
saying.
phase you're in. But
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
think they feel that pressure, right? Because we are a part of the conversation. We get to say nowadays, no, I don't want to date you. No, you're not my type. No, I'm not physically attracted to you. Whereas I think a lot in the past was, if you're the woman, you are lucky to have this man pick you. And of course, I'm just referring to, a female, male, traditional, like 70s, 60s housewife kind of thing. But it's so different now, and everyone gets to have an opinion on what their relationship looks like. And I think that's probably added more pressure to men to, you know, have to keep up.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're all human, right? We're all trying to do we all have the human experience and we're all going through it at some point or at not just some point at different points. We're talking about like what was going on in high school. I'm sure we've got points that we're going through now in our 30s and 40s that are coming up as well for everybody. Okay, moving on. One of the overarching themes I have going on with Blaine's story is one of self-sabotage. I shut down the prospect of going to a school dance with him, openly categorized our relationship as sibling like, scolding him backstage instead of appreciating his presence, and so on. What self sabotaging experiences have you had with a crush or at all? And how common do you think this is for girls and women?
For me, I've always felt you can't be, too ready because that's an unattractive thing. Like, oh yeah, like I'll answer your text message or I'll answer your phone right away. Or they say, oh, are you free this Friday night? Like, yes, absolutely. That eagerness sometimes when I was younger felt could be so unattractive. And because then I assume they start to have that feeling of, well, what's wrong with her? Like, why doesn't she have literally any other hobbies or any other friends or any other thing to do? And you don't want to present yourself as like a stage 5 clinger. And so I think sometimes taking too much time with the intent of seeming busy or seeming like you're not on the forefront of my mind is in fact like putting someone else down in my excitement for that time spent with them, which could then make them feel like I'm not interested because I'm pretending to not be interested to seem more interesting. And that can get really messy. And it was truly a blessing to just be myself and learn, look, like if I want to hang out, I want to hang out. And if I've got other plans, I've got other plans. And I'll be candid about that. But I did not learn that until much later in life. So, yeah.
Well, also it was something new for us. Like we didn't really get the texting and the cell phone stuff. Like even when we first got cell phones, we couldn't even really text unless because it was too expensive because it was per text or word or whatever it was. So it was
Per
really
character or
like
something.
yeah. So it was really something kind of like a new social aspect to navigate at the time too. So that was something for us all to figure out and hopefully we figured it out and we can kind of advise the younger generations like don't do that, like just respond, which I'm sure they've developed their own, like who knows what they do now when they text and stuff, or if they even text, maybe they like just snap or something,
Yeah.
I don't even know.
They will never know what it's like to have an alert come on when your crush signs on to AIM. And then you see it and you're like, oh, they're on. And then you sit and you wait and you're like, how long is an appropriate amount of time for me to go, oh, I noticed you're on. And so, like, that's an example of what I mean by like, I don't want to be, I mean, I was being freaky if I had an alert to say they signed on. but just sitting at your
But we
computer.
all did it, just like we all did it, just like we've all Facebook stalked, we've all social media stalked. We've all checked the ex's profiles and all that stuff. It's all something we've gone through, and it's kind of like a millennial rite of passage in a way. But yes, I really
Yeah.
related to the aim. Oh, they're on, like, oh my gosh. And you're like all giddy, yeah, all excited, but you're also like, you have to pause because you have to be cool.
Let me go back to picking my MySpace top four for the week before I circle back to you or code in a new background song. We were all little coders back then. How cool.
We were. Yeah. I was peak coder during MySpace, and then Facebook just came and made everything so streamlined that I lost any knowledge of what I knew how to do.
Yeah, I felt just like a tangent on this one. With Facebook, I felt so cool because my friend's sister invited me. So I was in before I was in college, but then it became like accessible to everyone. So then my mom had one, and I was like, oh my gosh, well, this sucks.
Yeah, it
It's
was
no
like
longer
cool.
the
And
cool
then,
way.
yeah, I actually didn't, it's okay. I love nostalgic tangents, but I actually did not want a Facebook, but everyone else had one. When I was working, I think I was working on some sort of show, and I was like, well, what if you don't have Facebook? And everybody, like, there was like five people, and they all turned around and looked at me like, what do you mean you don't? They didn't say it, but their eyes were like, what do you mean you don't have Facebook? And then I went home that night and signed up for Facebook. And the whole decade after, I hated Facebook, but I was using it because I felt socially obligated to do so.
Yeah. And I mean, nowadays, at least for me, it's just a collection of pictures, right? I get a little memory pop up once every day for, 10 years ago or 2 years ago, you did this. And, some of it's pretty cringe from 10 years ago, but some of it's, cute to be like, oh yeah, a year ago on this day, this was a fun activity, but I'm
Yeah.
not really into it.
Yeah. You're not like into it. Okay, so okay, we did go on a little bit of a tangent there. We are talking about self-sabotaging experiences, but how common do you think it is for girls and women to go through self-sabotaging? And it's not to say that boys and men don't do the same thing, but I do feel like girls may put a little bit more pressure on themselves as far as like body image or social construct or anything like that. So yeah, how common do you think it is for girls and women to self-sabotage themselves in terms of pursuing somebody that they like?
I mean, I think that it's pretty common. I do remember, I mean, it's self-preservation, right? Especially when we're younger, of I'm going to shut it down before you have the chance to make me feel bad, before you have the chance to embarrass me. Was his name Brad was the one who had asked if you'd go to the dance with Blaine, and depending on your existing friendship or how long you've known someone, you have no way to know if you're being set up for something. And whether you've experienced it or not, I think you also touched on the fact that like media plays a really heavy role in how we perceive how we're supposed to be. So if you don't already personally identify as a desirable person, you're going to assume someone's setting you up because that's what the movies have taught us. If I don't look like this, clearly I'm doomed or destined for that. And so I'm going to make myself feel better by shutting it down before you can hurt me. And I think that that is a very just common thing in dating or in the world. It's like before I have a chance to be let down, I'm going to stop it because it was on my own terms. It's hard to wrap your mind around. If I want it, I need to try it. I have to say I did it or at least attempted it so I can officially close that book and say, look, it didn't work out.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. We're well said. One of the things that came up in my junior year was prom. And I think you also mentioned the big social event that was at my school, Celebration. So, what was your prom like? Did you go? And if you did you get to go with whom or who you desired to go with?
Oh my gosh. So I had two of them. So it was my prom, and I invited one of the cousins to go with me. So they were very, very religious, and their religion, I'm opening a whole nother can of worms. Their religion did not allow for dancing. So like school dances and whatnot, that's probably a whole different podcast topic if
I'm
you
just
ever
gonna
want to
say
dive.
it. Footloose. Footloose is all I'm gonna say. If you know, you know. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so we it was Footloose, and so he said, "Okay, like I'll be your date. I'll go and I'll take prom pictures with you, but I'm not going to go to the dance with you." And I was like, "You know what? That's great. I get to go with the person that I'm like really crushing on, and I'm okay with that. Like I get it. I did get it. To me it wasn't an excuse because I was well versed on their religion and all that. And so we went and I had this friend who had a crush on me that I did not have a crush on them. And so he showed up at my door thinking I didn't have a date and he gave me a corsage and I was like, "Oh, like I'm actually going to take pictures with this guy and but I'll be at the prom." And I don't think we were in the same limo, but I feel really bad because I had my friend coming in trying to be my savior and I'm over here just crushing after a guy that wasn't even going to really go to the dance with me. And so it was messy. It was a messy time to be alive. And I remember getting to the prom, and there was a sophomore from who was someone else's date, and we had the same dress on. And I was like, this is the worst night of my life. Like, I don't have a date. And I was so embarrassed when my friend was just thinking of me. You think back on it and you're like, God, you're a bad person. But like, we're so close, he and I. And then now this sophomore who shouldn't even be here has my same dress. I'm never doing this again. And just because I was that dramatic of a person, I just said, no, I'm not going to my senior prom. I don't want to do it. I'm not interested. And I did have a few people ask me, and I just said, yeah, no, I don't want to. So I just didn't. I had kind of not a great junior prom, and I didn't go to my senior prom. And I'm not really thought about it enough to think about if I regretted it or not, because I didn't have FOMO. Like I didn't feel left out because it was my choice not to go. But, you know, there could have been a chance to have salvaged what seems to be a not so pleasant memory of my proms. So, yeah.
Talk about movie moments when that friend came with a corsage and everything to try and, like you said, be your knight in shining armor, be your savior for the dance. Yeah, that was like really, really sweet, even though it didn't really work out in his favor. um,
No,
yeah, but
that was
he
kind
didn't
of
know the full
mean.
situation. He didn't know the full
Right.
situation. You didn't know, you didn't ask him to go there. He didn't, but you didn't know he was going to do that. That was
Right.
still very sweet. That was like a very, like, I could see it in a movie. But yeah, and not going to your senior prom, I feel like, prom isn't everybody's scene. Not everybody's going to be unhappy if they don't go to their proms. And it sounded like you were done with it. You're over it. You didn't have, like you said, you didn't have FOMO when you went. And if you are just now trying to consider if you regretted it, you probably didn't. If this is the first time you're thinking about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's good too, because I feel like prom is one of those things, again, because of pop culture, because of the movies and the media. There's now there's like, what is it? Prom engagement, not engagements, promposals. Have you heard about the promposal?
Is that where people get overly? It's not just a question anymore, it's a spectacle, right?
Yes,
Is that
yes.
okay?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
let's
they make the poster,
uh,
they put it on social media and or they're recording it and they get down on one knee or whatever they'll do. They'll make a big thing instead of which I mean asking somebody to go to prom or to be asked or to wait to be asked to go to prom was already nerve-wracking enough in itself. And
Mhm.
now somehow whoever, which it is a cute idea, but of course a cute idea always has to be run with and overdone. Have whoever decided that was a cute idea and did it really added a lot of pressure. Like talk going back to our conversation earlier, like way to add more pressure to young people going through it in high school today.
Yeah, it's already such a vulnerable question, right? You wouldn't think asking someone to the dance is, but it is. And now we're going to have you invest time, invest money, add an audience, and you're just hoping they say yes. That's bold.
Proms. Moving on, we'll talk about celebration. When I went to celebration, even though I, as the female, was expected to ask someone to go with me, a guy asked me anyway, like you said, a sophomore in my class. At the time, the role reversal of the girl asking a boy out instead of waiting for a boy to ask was not at the forefront of my mind. And I was prepared to do the asking, even despite my lower self esteem and confidence. Do you think this outdated expectation is still prevalent today, or is it a concept we have finally ditched?
It's hard to put my mindset in probably what the high school kids are going through now. I think as I've aged and look at, my friend groups, I think that concept is no longer something that's super prevalent with us. It's like whomever is feeling the feeling will have that conversation. But when you're young, like you're wanting to be wanted. And if the media is telling us that the guy or the more masculine in the couple asks the question, or masculine presenting, then you're going to sit there and you're going to wait. And I don't know. I don't know if for the young folks that piece is gone yet. I do feel like, at least for me personally, as you get older, you get far more confident in I want what I want, and I'm not going to settle for what I don't. And so I want to believe that maybe the high school kids are there too, because now the media is kind of telling that story of like, oh, look, she wanted it and she got it, and dream big, princess, be your own, I don't know, knight in shining armor. So I would like to hope that the pressure has alleviated a little bit for our younger generation, but there's no way to be certain.
It's true. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Okay, so moving on to one of our final questions. If you were to write your own story, which crush in your life would you write about and why?
I think I would probably write about a few of them that happened all around the same time, but I remember it fondly as the time where I finally got that confidence to say, this is what I want. And it was right around when my husband Ryan and we broke up for a couple of months. At the time, you don't know it's going to be a couple of months. You think your world is over, and it's devastating and quite sad. And, there were some folks that had come back from my past, some people who were newer and interested with me being on the market. And, all I wanted was some time to grieve and find myself. And eventually we did circle back, me and my husband together, because we're married. But I think I would spend a lot of time talking about the self-discovery I had with that, because I think that's so much more important. It really is true what RuPaul says, like, how do you expect anyone else to love you if you can't love yourself? And that was the moment where I had the time to say, what do I want and what do I need as a person, before jumping back into a relationship that then turned out to be, the one. But you don't know that at that time. And so I think that's probably what I would write about, is my experience, even though it was just 2 months, of living through that.
Well, I mean, hey, like you said, 2 months, even though you didn't know it was going to be 2 months, you thought it was just over, that the world had ended. 2 months can be a long time when you're going through it. It can feel like 2 years. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing to want to write about, especially for somebody who loves hearing, women's stories about these types of things, because we are so conditioned as women to be, the caregiver and to serve others before ourselves. And that it really is something that we have to relearn kind of as a society. And men have to learn it too, even though they're not conditioned the way that women are. But really how to, take care of ourselves and think about what we want. We're not trying to survive off of, sticks and firewood and stuff anymore. Like we're kind of okay. Like, we don't have to marry for survival anymore. We can just really kind of figure out what we want and, what we can do and feel safe in that. So yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing to want to write about. And if you don't mind, do you mind sharing how old you were at the time? Which I know age is kind of, not really important when because people will go through these stages in different times of our lives. It's not defined to one age,
Mhm.
but I do think it is important to share. Yeah. How old were you around that time, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, while you asked that question, I was trying to think, oh gosh, how old was I? But I do remember um, that Ryan and I reconciled shortly after my 25th birthday. So it must have been in that 24, 25 range. And I graduated college 1 year later, because I switched from performance to production and design. So I had, 50 million credits to make up. And so coming out of college and then jumping right into my new job and my new relationship, you've been in theater, tech week will consume your soul, or
Oh,
your time,
yes.
not so much your soul. Well, your soul too, but
Yeah.
you get so busy. and you don't have a lot of time to find yourself, and then jumping into a relationship, it's easy to adapt to whatever that person's life was like, and take that on as your own personality. And so it was a very vulnerable and scary time to be like, this is the first time I'm not doing something or with someone, and I have this time to slow down and just figure out, I'm not in school, I'm not dating someone, what are my hobbies, what are things that I like. And that was when I started playing fantasy football, and I still to this day love it, and it is a great hobby of mine. So, and it's mine, I love it.
Yay. Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
It was like a bonus in the self-discovery when you were discovering yourself. It was like extra, like a
Yeah,
little bonus.
I got a hobby.
Yeah. With that, we've reached the end of our time for this episode. So I thank you so, so much for joining me. But before we go, may you please share where listeners can find you if you would like to be found on the interwebs that we have been speaking of?
Sure. I have an Instagram that I never update, but I use it to watch reels. And that my Instagram handle is at beep boop bop boo. And I can send that to you, so you can put it in the comments if you need it. And then I also have a Facebook, just Noel Walker. I don't know any tricks to find me, but I can also send a link to that too.
Yes, I will definitely put those links in the show notes if anybody wants to take a look. And also, thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for joining me, Noelle. I had a good time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun reliving some memories.
Yay, I'm glad. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me. If you like this episode and would like to hear another, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you have some extra time, check out my Substack at jitsi.substack.com. The link will be in the show notes. That's where you can check out my memoir series that inspired this very podcast. And you can take a look at the real life stories and experiences that inspired the topics that are discussed in each episode. If you'd like to support the show and keep future episodes coming, you can buy me a coffee. It helps fuel the writing fire. The Crush Chronicles is 100% produced by me, Rachel Jitsawat. The music is by Musictown, and the sound effects are by Pixabay. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep crushing it, because no one can crush it like you can.